Hi, welcome to today's Greedy 3D. Today we're going to be making Captain Carter, and I have to say this is my absolute favourite piece of work. It's come together so well. It's taken me a fair few years to get the grip on the trade of 3D printing and painting, but I actually feel like I've turned a little bit of a step on this piece as I'm so pleased with how it's come out. Now, if you watch the video and you find something helpful, please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and like the video. And I think just a little bit of practice, a little bit of care, watching videos and making mistakes, and that's really important, will get you moving forward in the right direction for your trade. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe and stay tuned for the making process of Captain Carter. I'm going to prime the model with some matte black Army Painter air paint, and this allows me to do some zenithal shading to the model afterwards. It needs a primer on top of the resin, and the black, especially for me, allows me when I'm doing faces to give that really good shading, and if I avoid the areas that look like they're in shadow, it really does help. Coming down from the top using the Nomad Flesh, again from the Army Painter, one of the airbrush set, I'm just taking my time and giving the face a layer. And if you notice, I'm doing it majoritarily from the top of the head going down. And again, if you can see there that the underside of the face will be more in shadow and the top will have more colour on. We're going to just use a different shade now, and we're going to change to the Barbarian Flesh. And I'm just going to start to highlight the face in the areas where the highlight would be: top of the head, cheeks, top of the nose, chin. Again, just giving it some light coats. I don't want to change the colour completely, and I'm working on the majority from the top of the head again to allow that shadowed area under the nose, under the eyes, to stay in the shadows as such. These are the Army Painter air paints that I found to be really good and easy to use, easy to mix, and I've had no real clogging issues with them. Going even to a lighter colour now, to the Wildling Flesh, I'm going to just do exactly the same, a much lighter, lesser coat here, just literally concentrating on those areas of highlight again. Take your time with this. Now what I've found after I've done that is, if I use a watered down alien purple, highly watered down, just to give it a coat of colour over the top, and it does just add to the depth of the skin there, as you can see. Not too thick, and don't let it pool. Next colour is the pure red. Again, I've watered this down so it's more of a light shade, and I'm just going to use this onto her face, the areas of her cheek where her makeup would be, and just a little bit more of a colour across her face. Now don't do too much, we don't want to turn her completely red. Now away from the airbrush and to the brushing techniques, I'm going to use a little bit purple. I'm putting it up to my wet palette, and I'm going to water that down and just give the layers around her eye a little bit more of a darker colour. So it's going to be around the eyes, and it's going to be the nasolabial folds, the folds between the nose and the lips, just to give it a little bit of a darkened tone for the contrast really of the shadowed areas. Eyes next. The way that I do eyes is the way that I've seen it done by other people, and I like to give a dark matte black base layer to the inside of the eye. Now take care here, you don't want to be overspilling onto your flesh, but allowing the black to go into the eye, and then we will overcoat it with white, will give a kind of eyeliner appearance to the eye. She looks a bit zombified at the moment, but we will give her some white later. Now while that's drying, I'm just going to do her lips. Now Hayley there, as we can see, has got some quite bright red lips, and that's what I'm going to do. So Captain Carter here's lips are going to be standing out quite well. Narrow, thin brush, and I'm just following very delicately the contour of her lips. I'm going to shade those lips a little bit using some lighter colour on the top of the bottom lip to add some shade and some little bits of white, just to give a kind of reflective look, but I'm going to be putting varnish on the end of it to make it shine anyway. Back to the eyes now, a white mixed with a hint of blue, and I'm just going to really carefully with a really fine brush just touch the eyes up, and a few layers were needed here just to make them pop. But if you can see there, I've left a really thin black layer around that does look like eyeliner. It's a little bit different if you're doing men, the bottom would be more red, but on a female model you can definitely leave it up above and below. I'm using a little bit of the Barbarian Flesh now just to tone and a low light underneath the eye, just to add some shadowing effects. And I've also used a little bit of the Army Painter Flesh wash as well at relatively the same time to do that. Now to the eyes, everybody's least favourite part. I want to look in up and slightly to the left, so I'm just going to pinpoint where the centre of those eyes are going to be, not necessarily where the pupil's going to be, but where the centre is, so I know she's going to be not looking bobble-eyed. A little drop there, a little drop on the other eye, and I'm just going to make sure that they're central, that they look in the same direction. Take your time with the eyes. I did consider using transfers, but I really wanted to paint them. Now, once I'm sure that the eyes are going to be looking in the same direction, I'm going to start to build on them. I shall make the black outer layer of the iris thicker, and then I'm going to turn to that Martian brown, which is a brown colour of Hayley Atwell's eyes, and I'm just going to start to build them up, as you can see there. Finishing off with the eyes with the pupil, and then with a little speck white dot just to show some light effects, and then when it's all dried I'm going to put some varnish in there just to make them ping and pop. Going on to the hair, I started to use Martian brown on the hair, and I gave the hair a complete coating of Martian brown. Now when I looked at the end result that I'd got, I wasn't overly struck on the colour of the hair, and Hayley's hair is a lot darker, so using the brown as a really good base primer layer, I went over it again with some black, and I used a little bit of the matte black from Army Painter, and then I highlighted it with a blue Army Painter paint, and that is the result of the head. I'm really pleased with how it's come out, as you can see there, and I'm now going to start to move on to the rest of Captain Carter. I'm going to be using the Air Paint Triad to do the blue of her uniform, and I'm going to start off with the darkest of the Triad, the Omega Blue. I've loaded the airbrush, and I'm just going to do some gentle continual strokes just to get it all across. Now you may have noticed we've covered Captain Carter's face. I really don't want to risk anything going over the face after all that hard work, so I've just used one of the latex gloves to cover it over. How you cover bits of paint that you've previously done is up to you. You can use the paint on masking paint, or you can use a little bit of masking tape or something like cling film. I'm just plump for something that was at hand at the moment. It's probably going to need a bit of touching up just on the neck, but I'm happy with that. Once she's had the once over with the darkest of blue, we're going to be moving to the ultramarine blue, which is the next layer. And I'm just going to concentrate on the higher areas of the uniform here, a very light spray, trying to avoid the shadowed areas, but concentrating on the outer thighs and knees, etc. We're now going to move on to the lightest coat, the console blue. Be careful with the light colours. You don't want to ruin all your hard work by just going over everything. Stick to the areas that would be naturally sticking out or would be a little bit worn, and liberally apply. We're going to move on to the boots and the brown areas now, starting off with the rawhide brown, which is the darkest of the colour triad, and I'm going to make sure I apply this liberally all across the boots, and also there will be the gloves on the hands. It won't be too long before you've got a really good layer on, and we're going to move then to the second of the triad colours, which will be the good old-fashioned familiar leather brown, again concentrating on only the highlighted areas and not all over the whole boot. Final of the triad layers now, and bulwark brown, I'm not sure who comes up with these names, is applied just on the outer surfaces only, no more. onto the brushwork, and I'm not going to put you through all the brushwork as there were hours and hours. Started off with a red coat all over the areas that are designated red, and then I'm just going to go through with the white as well. Very laborious and long-winded, but very enjoyable. Once the white is down, that's what we get. That's what Captain Carter is looking like at the moment. I'm going to give it another coat of white when this one has dried, but just to give you a look of what it looks like. Hours and hours have gone into this meticulous painting, going over with the white and the red and the blue to try and make sure I've got some nice straight lines. In blue, we've used some leather brown here for the straps around her arms and around her back. And exactly the same paint and the same process for the belts. Just put some relaxing music on, a fine brush, and take your time. Here I'm using some silver just to highlight the belt buckle. I'm going to go around the rest of Captain Carter and highlight any buckle that I can see, just using this silver from Army Painter. And just to add some aging effects, I'm just using a soft wash to go over the belts and go over all the strapping, just to give it that aged look. The shield has taken ages, using metallic red, white and blue, masking tape, a sharp knife and oodles of patience. I've aged the effect up with some silver, dry brushing and just using some silver on a toothpick. My Ender 5 is here printing the base, and I'm going to give it a paint now, a base coat with some meadow green Rust-Oleum paint. It's literally the base layer that I'm going to put on, and then I'm going to move to my airbrush and give it a highlight of metallic green. Using the Army Painter spray, some glitter green, I'm just going to load the airbrush and generally blast the part, just to give it that metallic look sitting on top of the green base. To further enhance the metallic, it's having some plate metal, again just liberally sprayed on the highlighted areas, the areas that would wear naturally with time. And finally, for that just rusted effect, some rough iron, again very lightly sprayed on only certain areas, just to give it that final pizzazz. Final part here that I've printed on my PLA Ender 5 is just getting an undercoat of primer grey, just to give it a base layer of something to apply the rest of the colours on. And I've mixed here some orange and some red just to give me the brick colour, and I'm going to use a dry brush to liberally splat that all across the brickwork. Once I've done that, I'm using a very light wash, a soft tone wash, to give the whole thing a coat, and then I'm going to take some skeleton bone and highlight the bricks just to give them their final coat and colour, and they really do look like worn out, smashed up bricks. Once that's done, onto the black and just tidying up the areas around the overspill of the grey and the wash, just to give it a tidy up so it looks really, really neat. Just some Army Painter matte black here going on. And the final touch is a little bit of silver on the area there, and I'm going to use that silver to just highlight the Captain Carter logo on the actual base itself. And now the red on the Hydra sign, and we're nearly done. Final stage, using the Army Fields Battlefield basing kit, I'm just going to add some sand and some grass effects and some little grassy knolls, and that is the stand. In fact, that's the whole model complete. Let's have a look at her.